times of ancient Rome, the elites kept the populace under control by a very interesting mechanism. They opened the amphitheatres, set the gladiators out without charge. They handed out grain, handed out bread for free. Now, why would the elite give something out for free? You know, the entertainment, the nourishment, why would they do that for free? It was for one very simple reason. Distraction. Now, I know when we look through the analytical, somewhat judgmental lens of history, this seems almost silly. How could this easily fooled populace fall for this simple trick? But it's very easy to just point and laugh. But you have to appreciate the most powerful distractions never feel like distractions. It's never a conscious choice where, this arena is buzzing and I'm going to go watch the games, but I should be going and doing something about the fallen country and the poor leadership in my country and the lack of morals, so on and so forth. But no, instead I'm going to watch this amphitheatre buzzing. But in actual fact, you're not even consciously thinking. All you're thinking about in your mind is which gladiator's going to win. You know, is it the lion going to maul him, or is he going to kill the lion? You know, you're not even consciously thinking about the decrepit state in which your country is in. So when I say it's very easy to point and laugh, one has to look at ourselves. Are we not falling for the exact same trick? Because like I said, distractions never feel like distractions. And in this podcast today, I'm going to argue why football may be one of the most sophisticated distractions to ever exist, and one that you and me are falling for right now. Now, I want to preface this by saying I am not judging you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm merely giving you another perspective on football that no one has ever really said before, at least not in depth. And I think I've never seen a long breakdown on this in the internet, full stop. So I implore you, give me the time of day. This may not be nice to hear, but I think it is necessary to hear, because I see too many men in England and Europe base almost their whole identity and input almost all of their energy into these 22 men kicking a ball around on a pitch. And I think it is potentially very harmful for the world at large. So in my opinion, I have to say something, but again, I'm not telling you what to do. This is just my opinion. When did I actually come about this opinion? Because this is a very, very uncommon opinion. Like, this is one of the most controversial opinions you could have in England, in the UK. But I remember Liverpool won the Premier League. Okay. And this was after, 30 years or whatever. This was meant to be a momentous occasion. And me as a Liverpool fan, I'm not going to say lifelong, because, I didn't really like football when I was a kid, but I started liking it when I was probably about, 13 something, so call me a plastic fan if you will. I don't care. But I remember Liverpool finally won the Premier League, and this was an momentous occasion. I'd invested so much energy and emotion into this, the fancy football, the constant bickering with friends, the watching of the games, the buying the shirts, and not to mention all the time scrolling on Instagram, looking at the reels, watching highlights, even like the memes, even like just debating with people in comment sections and arguing with people in comment sections and constantly on the group chat with the boys talking about football. This took up a massive portion of my life. So surely when that moment came and Liverpool won the league, right, for the first time in 30 years, and obviously all the other rival fans had talked so much, and this should have been like heaven on earth for me, right? But what actually happened, like, I remember trying to celebrate like everyone else. I saw the trophy bus parades and hundreds of thousands of people showed up. I remember trying to celebrate myself like everyone else. I remember trying to convince myself that this was some splendid occasion and I should be happy and no, there was nothing wrong with the world. But the thing is, I remember having this strange moment of clarity, right? Where I was kind of looking at this sea of red in the streets of Liverpool. And obviously I wasn't there, I was just looking at it on my phone and whatever. But I realised something strange. And that was the fact that I had to almost force myself to be happy about it. Because I kind of realised that despite all this celebration and these festivities and this joy, nothing had actually changed. You know, I looked at myself, I looked at my physique. It's still the same physique. Subpar. You know, I kind of introspectively analysed myself, and my mental health was still poor. That baseline anxiety was still there. I looked at my bank account, nothing had changed. Still on minus figures. I looked at my social life, it hadn't made any new friends. I looked at my advancement as a person, and I was still exactly where I was. Except debatably unhealthier, but because of the beer in my hand. And it kind of made me realise that football didn't really serve me anymore. And I kind of looked over my life and like how much of my energy I dedicated to this thing. For what? Exactly. You know, my country, the world in which we live, it is still every day, step by step, marching towards the fires of hell. That hadn't changed. The country is still as divided as ever. You know, people can barely afford to live, to eat. You know, people are in a confused state. They don't know God. They don't know anything spiritual. They're unhealthy. They're in pain. They're suffering. None of that had actually changed. But yet, here, hundreds of thousands of people were, like I said, a sea of red, as far as the eye could see. We're out on the streets parading as if we'd made some progress on a humanity level, as a collective. But it just wasn't the case, and from then on forth, I couldn't really look at football the same. And that was the moment the illusion started to crack for me, and I started analysing like how much I put into this hobby, this habit, whatever you call it, and I kind of realised what I got out of it. And it seemed the exact same. I only ever got out what I put in. Now, and that might seem a bit whimsical, and I'll elaborate later in depth. But one important distinction, which I kind of, following this, I kind of over a while analysing, realised, and the reason why football feels so important, like it feels like Liverpool winning the league for the first time in 30 years, is some kind of advancement for humanity. The reason why, this feels so important and so crucial, and why when you see in the Champions League final in the 95th minute a player break and he's in on goal, why it feels like that is the epitome of importance is because we have all collectively decided that is the epitome of importance. If you look at a trophy, what is it? It's a bit of metal. Quite ostentatious metal, yes, it's well crafted, but it's just metal. But the fact that we write the Champions League on it and we all input millions and millions of people, even billions debatably actually, all collectively input their attention, their belief, their energy into this massive, almost entity-like thing. That is why the Champions, this piece of metal, which could be just sit growing dust on someone's musty shelf somewhere, actually is one of the highest achievements you can achieve as a person. But it doesn't actually mean anything. Like I said, it does nothing for the growth of humanity. And when you look at a stadium and a pitch, it's just concrete and grass. You know, there's not much more to it. At the end of the day, football is 22 men kicking a ball around in a field in a made-up game with made-up rules. Yet it seems like the most important thing ever. And that's simply because you have the shared belief system inputted into this world of billions of people that agree that this is an important thing. Which, I won't go too deep into this, but in Western esotericism, this is referred to as an egregore. But I'm not going to go too deep into the more mystical side of things. But another thing in football is like, say, for example, Liverpool are celebrating on the day. For Liverpool to celebrate and to have that joy, some other club, say Manchester United, in Manchester has to be miserable. There's always a payoff. There is never a net benefit for everyone. You know, someone always has to miss out. Someone always has to be happy for the other person to be sad. And this is another thing I noticed. Like, it's you need that hatred of an outgroup to sustain it. You know, I think the best communities and the best societies rely on like a mutual agreement towards something better, a higher ideal, advancement in an endeavor. Like, for example, the reason why martial arts gyms are so great as communities, because there is that shared higher ideal which everyone's striving towards, which is becoming a better fighter and better person as well. So that is what you want. Like that is a good community. That is a good group. But every football team relies not on this, but on the hatred of an outgroup. They all have their enemies, their derbies, their whatever. There is always someone else they must hate in order for them to love them, their own club, which is not a healthy thing. And it kind of means there is no such thing as a net benefit for anyone. Like, two clubs can't play each other and all their fans and whatever, and they can't both be happy. Someone has to lose out, which is why I was saying you only ever get in what you put out, and I'll go into that more in depth later. But another silly thing is literally like men will literally fight other men, right? Men will go out and think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to risk my life, risk someone else's life, based on the outcome of 22 men kicking around a ball in a made-up game with made-up rules. It's the most childish thing ever, and men will genuinely like. Well, I mean, it's not so big these days, I don't think, but you have like firms in football clubs, which is almost like a militia of sorts, and these will literally just go and fight, similar firms from other clubs, and it's just the most silly thing and childish thing I've ever heard of in my life. Like, it means nothing, and you're risking your life for it. Like the odd, obviously the odd person who goes to a football game and they enjoy it on the weekend, but they don't input too much energy, and it doesn't affect them that much. That's, I'm not fucking like shitting on someone. I'm not shitting on someone in general, except for maybe if you're this person who's going out and fighting because of football, that's like the silliest thing I can ever imagine. But it is also kind of understandable in fairness, because football kind of provides everything a man wants. If you play it, you obviously have that masculine competition, and you have that tribal instinct. I mean, you have to think that was very primal, right? Primally, obviously, there would have been a lot of competition, who can bring in the hunt, for means of self-betterment. Some of the time it was a bit more toxic, and obviously you're in a tribal setting, you're in a tribe, you're going out on a hunt. It's almost like you're going out to play a game of football on an away day. It's a similar thing. You have those tribal dynamics. It's similar in football. You have those team dynamics. And it is quite similar to that. And then also, if you're watching it, you have those, you're kind of like, you have that proxy for competition, which is very interesting, because this is a very interesting fact, is that fans will actually have testosterone levels increase and decrease similar to the players who are playing, because obviously in competition, if you win, you get a testosterone boost. If you lose, your testosterone is reduced. It's quite interesting, actually. The how much it's boosted or reduced is actually jurisdicted on the quality of your opponent. So if your opponent's way better than you, you're not going to lose much testosterone. But if your opponent's like a lot worse than you, you're actually going to lose a lot of testosterone. So, and fans who are watching this game, their testosterone was actually increased and decreased, mirroring the players depending on a win or a loss, which I find is absolutely fascinating, and I think that speaks 1,000 words, because that means someone can kind of experience via proxy masculine competition without actually having to step into the arena. They don't have to step into the arena. They don't have to step and take any personal risks. All they need to do is just turn up and watch another man play and just shout from the sidelines and become emotionally invested, and they will scratch the itch of masculine competition. And it's extremely safe, and it's almost become like a socially acceptable comfort zone for the masculine, which I think is very damaging, because it stops men actually competing themselves. Because the point of competition is growth, right? Like, for example, when I want to compete, like the reason I want to compete is because I want to be a better person. Like, I want to be able to step into a ring in front of a bunch of people and fight and do something terrifying, and then to prove myself, I can do that. I become a better person for it, become a bolder person for it. But the thing is, when you're watching it, you're not doing any of those things, but you're still scratching the itch of masculine competition. So when a simulation physiologically almost becomes like a competition for you, it becomes kind of like a masculine pacifier, if you will. Like, it's just enough to like scratch the itch, without actually having to ever step into the arena. And you literally just like, you're sucking on it like a baby sucks on a dummy, you know? It'll give you that little itch, it'll comfort you, you know, it'll give you, you know, the kind of effects as if you were competing without ever actually having to compete. And that's why I'm saying it's a dangerous thing, because I think it could potentially stop you from achieving something yourself. And there's also a little thing I like to call distradiction, right? And it's distraction and addiction like welded into one. Admittedly, it doesn't roll off the tongue that well, but we're using it anyway. And the breakdown of it is this: like, people will say as a cope, like, maybe I'll challenge someone on watching football, and what they'll say is, "Oh, I just watch the games, mate. So it's just a bit of fun on the weekend." But the reality of the situation is, football isn't just a distraction, you know, that you think about on the weekend. You know, no, they've evolved it to way more than that. It needs to be something that occupies every spare second, soaks up every morsel of time you have, because it's not just football; it's sports betting, right? You see people with ACCAs and, you know, betting on the literally like under 12 snooker. It's absolutely ridiculous. Then you have football fantasy as well. Like, you need to build a fantasy team for it, and you need to watch all these games so you know who's good. And then you also have like gossip, like transfer gossip, news, injuries. And then you have like the social media side of things, where it's just constantly reporting, constant news, constant memes, and then even like the debating online or debating in person, and the conversations is almost all like anyone talks about is just like football or beer, and it almost just becomes like a constant occupation of your mind. Like, whenever you get a spare second, what are you thinking about football? Or could we win this game? Are we going to win that game? Are we going to lose that game? Is this player going to play well? And it just soaks up every morsel of free time and silence you have. And it's almost like in the modern world, like, God is trying to speak to you, but the voice of God is interrupted by a score update. And that's almost what it is like for quite a lot of men. Like, they just have no silence and no time to themselves, because everything will just be occupied by football. And the reason why it's so effective is because it's just, you know, almost like a facade of camaraderie, you know, of meaning, of purpose, but it doesn't really mean much. And what's the purpose? Like, your team winning the league or whatever, which doesn't mean much either. And the camaraderie is reliant on the hatred of an out-group anyway, which, in my opinion, doesn't form the best of communities. And then you kind of see many men falling into this pattern, like, well, they'll go to a job that's perhaps misaligned with them, but they'll do it anyway, and they won't try and do anything better. And this will soak up a lot of their time. And maybe at work they'll talk about football and they'll check score updates and whatever. And then the weekend comes and they go on some big away day and go and watch football, and then work on their fantasy football, then talk about football, and then Monday rolls around and they repeat the same cycle. And just every second and energy and money and time is just soaked up by football. And this is why I kind of say, like, football and pints is the equivalent of modern day bread and circuses. And you're not getting pints for free. They're probably like £6-7 these days, but people will still buy them anyway. And the reason why this is effective is because the best distractions don't actually seem like distractions. Like, they seem like something worthy of taking your attention. If you knew they were a distraction, you just ignore them. But you don't know they're a distraction. They kind of insidiously creep into you. It's almost like with parasites in biology, that there's a term called molecular mimicry. And that is essentially when a parasite enters a host organism, it will actually mimic the host tissue, and in some cases even literally cover itself in the host tissue. So the host just sees it as part of itself and doesn't attack it. It just sees, oh, that's just part of me. And that's what football's like in our culture. Oh, it's just part of our culture. It's just everyone watches it. It's just something we do. It's something else English lads do, right? I think it's almost just a parasite that's burrowed its way into our identity. Because we just see it as part of us and part of our livelihood, we don't see it for the parasite it is, and we don't attack it in the same way the parasite, dresses up as the host. And because that's the thing, football doesn't feel like time wasting. It feels like something that actually matters. That is why this is so controversial, because I'll say this to people, and people are like, no, I get this camaraderie, and I get this identity, and it's fun, and then, but then you have to ask these actual important questions, like, if you think of all the collective energy you've inputted into football, all those moments, all that money, all that energy, everything you've inputted, what personal growth for all that input has football actually brought you? because football is a zero-sum emotional game. Like, you will watch football and you invest all this energy into it, and you either have like the best day ever if your team wins or the worst day ever if your team loses. And you notice all those downs would literally mirror the ups. Like, for example, if your team loses all the time, the losers don't really feel that bad. But then as soon as they get a win, it's like the best thing ever. But then if your team wins all the time, the wins just feel like normal. It's not much. But as soon as your team loses, oh, it hurts so much. Because it all has to balance out. It all like aggregates out. Even like Man City, like winning the league title every year, like it doesn't really mean much to the fans because it's just a standard thing. Like, no one cares. Because it is a zero-sum emotional game. It's like you almost input your energy into it, it's stored into it, and then at some point you'll get that energy back. And it feels like the best thing ever. But all it is just like, say, for example, if your team loses a lot, it's like, you know, a dam blockading a river, and then the river builds up, and then lets go. And then obviously the river flows through, and it's like, oh, yeah, it's the best thing ever. England, you know, came second in the World Cup. Well, I mean, England never win the World Cup anyway. And it's like the best thing ever. Oh, that was so good. And then you're chasing that high forever, so you keep on doing it. But you have to realise, in order for you to get that massive flow and rush, you had to have had that drought as well. So you're kind of just, it's almost like an emotional masturbation in a sense. And also, like, I found it's extremely unwise to have something outside of what you can like actually control your emotions and life. It's a very dangerous thing, because if you feel sad because your team lost, you can't go on the pitch themselves and like score again. No, you just actually have to firm that. And I've also noticed a correlation between, like, in football, the more you emotionally invest into a game, and the more you put yourself on the line, and maybe you chat loads of shit, or maybe you like watch football all the time, the more you do that, the better it is when your team wins, and the worse it is when your team loses. So it literally, the outputs mirror your inputs every single time. Like, obviously, another thing people will say is, like, when I challenge them on football, say, oh, I've had some of my best memories in football. And like, that completely explains it, what I just said. Like, you have to imagine all of the outputs in football, all of the good times, and also all the bad times, right? And you imagine that on one side of the equation, just everything that's ever outputted in football, all those joyous moments, all those terrible moments. And on the other side of the coin, you have everything you ever put in, all that emotional investment, or that financial investment, or all that energetic investment, and then actually weigh it out and think, am I getting a net benefit here? But I'd wager it's the exact same as what you're inputting, which makes it, in my opinion, because you don't have any personal growth to show for it or development as a human, a waste of time. And there's something I like to call, like, the headmaster's office fallacy. And it's like, you know, when you were a kid and you got called to the headmaster's office or the principal's office, you know, where I don't know where you're from, and that's the most terrifying thing ever. You think, shit, what have I done? I am fucked, mate. I'm finished. My career is over. I might as well just off myself now. I'm done. I'm finished. So you're sitting outside almost waiting to be sent to the gallows. Then all of a sudden, you hear footsteps. And you look round the corner, and guess who comes round? It's your best mate, Craig. And you're like, oh, thank goodness, mate. Thank goodness. How are we doing, mate? What have we been up to this time? Naughty boys. And you're bantering, you and Craig having a good time. But nothing's changed. Like, you're still about to get sent to the gallows, you know, so to speak. But the fact that you are not doing it by yourself almost doesn't make it feel that bad, because it's shared. And in the same way, I think, if you have a vice, but everyone does it, it doesn't really feel like a vice. It just kind of feels normal, right? This is why, like, you know, back in the day when you were drinking and stuff, you'll notice, you know, a lot of your friends were actually just like drinking partners. You know, they weren't actually friends. They were just people who wanted like partners in vicehood. That they wanted to someone to kind of validate that, even though they subconsciously knew that what they were doing was bad, they wanted someone to kind of validate that, it's not that bad, I'm doing it as well. So because you're in the shit together, you're not really in the shit because everyone's in the shit, right? And that's kind of like the headmaster's office fallacy. And it's the same thing with football. If you don't watch football, you're going against the grain here. You know, everyone validates that football's something worthy of putting your attention into. Everyone validates it's worthy of putting your money into your energy into, because everyone watches it. Everyone talks about it constantly. And because of that, people think, it's just okay. It's not harmful. It's just a little hobby. But when you look at the grander scheme of things and kind of lay it bare like I have done today, you kind of see that it is actually very harmful. Because what you have to appreciate is that, like, a person wakes up and you have a set amount of energy each day, and adjudicated by things like health and perhaps even maybe money, you could argue, you may have more or less energy. Regardless, you have, say, £1,000 worth of energy currency each day. And how you choose to spend that money essentially impacts how you spend your life. If every day you spend £800 of that energy budget on football and leave £200 for, I don't know, pursuing your purpose or whatever, or finding out, so, the task in which God has ordained for you to live in this life, then you're not really going to make much progress, are you? And fundamentally, although, you might have a good time occasionally watching football and also a shit time watching football, because that's how football works, you're not actually going to have much to show for it. And it's not very obvious either. Like, football very quietly absorbs loads of energy. Like I said, it's like molecular mimicry, parasitical organism. And you don't really notice it, but how you choose to spend that energy budget essentially just jurisdicts the trajectory of your life. Because if you just spent that budget every single day on something that is aligned with you, that benefits the world, that benefits others, this world could be such a better place. But instead, no, so many people just choose it on just watching football, which in my opinion is just an energy leech. And I think football almost just opposes this other path of you, like I said, aligned on your mission, serving God, serving the world, serving the other, because it's just you're not actually living your life, you're living your life through the lens of someone else. I call it chronic vicarious living. You're vicariously living through some athlete, some team, and you're watching them, and you're almost energetically borrowing their experiences. Like I said, the testosterone decrease and increase as well, just mirroring theirs, and your emotional state's mirroring theirs, and it's like this weird chronic vicarious living, and it stops you from ever actually entering the arena yourself, because fundamentally it is safer to applaud heroes than become one. And this is something I see so much, and it's very, very sad. I know some very, very intelligent people, some very, very intellectually gifted people, and they misplace their potential so much. Like I said, they're probably working in some job that perhaps doesn't use the full capacity of their potential. So what do? With this great mind that they've been divinely blessed with, they just hyperanalyze sports. They'll have spreadsheets for fantasy football. They'll know every single occurrence that's happening in every single sport, and they will just intensify all that divinely assigned energy into something that essentially doesn't really give them anything back aside from what they put in. And it's a nasty trap you get into, because like I said, you're still chasing that high of when your team wins, and it does give you some kind of output back, so it's an easy trap to just stay in. And especially when you look at, say, chasing your purpose or something like that, a lot of when you're just getting started, you're just going to be inputting, but you don't really get anything back. You don't really get anything back, but then all of a sudden you keep on doing it for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years, and then it comes back times 1,000. And it sort of has that alchemic transmutable properties where you can get way more back than you put in, but you just have to stick with it, and it's the hard road. Whereas football is something you can just input loads of energy in, and you will get it back. Your team will win this week, maybe lose the next game, and you will get it back, and it's fairly immediate, right? So that's why it's such an enticing trap. But yeah, it's not just an energy leech, it's also a potential leech. Like I said, these great minds just dedicate their lives to analyzing transfer gossip or finding the perfect algorithm for sports betting. Imagine if they dedicated all that energy to making the world a better place. And this kind of podcast is actually inspired by a game I went to watch recently. So my family are quite big Notts County fans, right? And that's a League Two team, not National League. They'd probably crucify me if I said that. So I went to the game, whatever, and I used this as an opportunity, almost to study, right? And this was quite autistic, but yeah. So I went to watch the game. Obviously, I was watching the football and stuff, but I'm kind of aware, if you get emotionally involved in it, then that's kind of you're putting you're almost gambling your mood, your emotions on the outcome of the game. And you also your testosterone, to be fair, and which is good because County lost 2-0. So I'm glad I didn't do that. But I was kind of just analysing everyone around me, almost in a sociological sense. I was just delving into what's happening around me. I wasn't just staring at people and the game's there. No, I was just kind of watching and just observing and kind of seeing the dynamics at play. And one thing that kind of struck me as very peculiar. Because when you look at football from a neutral standpoint, you don't kind of buy into the egregore that's football and the collective belief system. You just look at it for what it is. It seems really, really weird and quite silly and quite immature, to be honest. There was a bloke next to me, just your average bloke. Like, you see him on the street, oh, you right, mate, how you doing? That was, friendly guy, whatever. And he was just sat next to me enjoying the game and whatever. I was watching the game, I was enjoying it. And then the ref, who, like, quite frankly, it was pretty obvious to me anyway, that he was deliberately just giving shit fouls because he's studying refereeing his whole life. He knows what a foul is. And he's deliberately not giving some, deliberately giving some. And you can tell he's even got, like, a smirk in his face, whatever. But he gave a foul that wasn't meant to be a foul for Notts County. And the bloke next to me just fucking exploded, like, with a string of obscenities just, like, pouring out this negative, like, emotion towards this referee, who's, by the way, doesn't give a fuck. He's just smiling anyway. And it's just, yeah, it's just struck me as, like, it's almost just like that masculine pacifier. You get out all that energy, you just shout out all that negative energy, because God forbid you actually do something positive with that negative energy, which you can do, by the way. Anger isn't just a bad thing. Anger can serve you. And all that emotion, it just kind of exploded out into this game. And obviously, he wasn't just the only one shouting, like I said, with the headmaster's office fallacy. If everyone else is doing it, it's fine. If he was the only one shouting, people are like, what the fuck is this guy doing? But because everyone else was doing it, he felt justified in doing that. And it was just very interesting. And to be honest, like, once I kind of looked at it through this illusion, it kind of just seemed so childish. It really did seem very, very childish. Like, this is a bunch of men, 22 men kicking a ball, like, with a made-up game. Doesn't mean anything in the grander scheme of things. Yet here, all these men are getting so emotionally involved in it and so angry. Like, it's actually allowing it to affect their emotions, and even, like, on an endocrine level. And it's just insane. I remember, like, seeing, obviously County didn't score that game, but I remember seeing a video again of, like, a 90th minute winner where Notts County, I think the week before, whatever, they went and scored late and, won the game, scored, like, right at the last minute. And, like, everyone went absolutely ballistic. And obviously, like, me even, like, not long ago would have seen, oh, that's cool, that's great fun. And it is great fun, yeah. But it just seems so silly. Like, as a man, you're getting that excited about just some made-up game. You're allowing yourself to get that emotionally invested where you're literally, like, fucking, like, piling on top of one another and just, like, absolutely, like, screaming about, like, another man just kicking a ball into a net. It's just, like, when you kind of look at it through that lens, it just seems foolish and almost a bit embarrassing. I'm not going to lie. And again, I'm not judging people because, I have my vices and stuff, but I think when you kind of look at it through that lens, it's a different ball game. No pun intended. Now, I wanted to sort of set up a little exercise with you and see what you think. Like, I want you to imagine Britain, UK, we know what kind of state it's in. We know it's, like, an absolute terrible place and it's only getting worse. And in my opinion, it is a man's role in society to not only be a bridge for God, but also to set the standard of morality and to build a beautiful world, right? And provide that shelter for the feminine to flourish. With that knowledge in mind, if, say, for 6 months, all live sport was cut off, there was no live sport, there was no masculine pacifier, there was no energy leech, and these men who were spending 80% of their daily energetic budget into football, they would have nothing else. What would happen? What would genuinely happen if these men were forced to face reality and they didn't have anything to kind of there were no referees to shout out to get their emotion out of them, none of that, nothing to emotionally stimulate them. They were just forced to sit in silence and look at the disgusting world that we are creating. What do you think would happen? Because although one might argue perhaps that, maybe you might have something a bit more chaotic, perhaps like civil war or something like that, which of course is terrible, but you also might see some positive change as well. Now, of course, I can't predict the future. I don't know what would happen, but just play that scenario out in your mind, and I just want you to indulge me and see, what do you think would happen? And here's the thing, right? People say ignorance is bliss. And, if you just watch football all day and kind of don't pay attention to the world around you, that is kind of true in a sense, but there is a trade-off, right? Because fundamentally, if you don't pick up the burden of being yourself, someone else will have to. Someone else has to. It's like, for example, people look at, like, a dog, for example. Oh, living life as a dog would be great. Oh, it'd be so nice. Look how happy they are all the time. But the thing is, the reason the dog is happy is because someone else looks after it. And the dog is very much at the mercy of that owner. If that owner just decides to abuse them, there's nothing they can do. They get abused, right? But if that owner decides to, like, baby them and pick up their shit after them and everything, that dog gets to have a great life, that is true. But they're at the mercy of their owner. But what happens if that dog loses that safety and that shelter and that person providing for them? They go out into the wild. Well, that dog becomes a wolf. So you have to understand, right, that ignorance makes dogs of wolves, and awareness makes wolves of puppies. So understand that the weight of the burden that you undertake in this world will determine the strength of your shoulders. So this is why I say ignorance is bliss to the self, but it is malice to the world, because the world needs you to be the best person you can possibly be. And you can only be the best person you can possibly be by facing reality and taking that burden on your shoulders. Because that dog is so easy to control, it is quite literally on a leash. Although it may be happy, is that the sort of life you want to live? There's a reason if I was to call you a dog, you would be offended. Because a dog is easily controlled. A dog is unintellectual. A dog has no agency. A dog has no control. A dog is vulnerable. So instead, choose to be the wolf. Because the wolf has no dependence on anyone else but himself. He sees the world for what it is. And because he sees the world for what it is, he cannot be controlled. Now, make no mistake, awareness is a burden, but it is also a gift long term. Because, well, you're a fucking wolf. And the reason the wolf is so hard to control, because once you start seeing these distractions like football, like, I don't know, drinking, whatever it is, for what they truly are, and you have that paradigm shift, you can't just frolic back into that life, into the stadium with the pints and the football. You can't just do it. You can't unsee the truth once you see it. And that is why the wolf is so hard to control. And the main payoff with the distraction is when one day you'll be getting walked along as a dog, and you'll see a wolf for the first time. And you will be shocked. Because they say hell on earth is when who you are meets who you could have been. And you very much have the ability to choose between the two. Now, of course, this never means you should never watch football ever again. Turn off the TV. No, if anyone speaks football. Not listening. No, that's not the case. All I'm advocating for here is a balanced perspective. I want you to see football for what it is. And the maliciousness it has the potential to inflict upon the populace, like the distraction which it can be. And just don't fall into that trap. Make sure you are pursuing something yourself. Make sure you are trying to make something happen. Make sure you're pursuing your purpose, your divinely ordained task in this realm. If you want to watch the odd game, like I watch the odd game of football, I do. But make sure you're not too emotionally invested in it. Don't be, doing fancy football, sports betting, all you do is talk about football, because it is an energy, potential, financial, and physical leech, right? So you have to be very, very careful. And like entertainment and relaxation, they are part of life, right? And because everyone watches football, if you don't watch football, you're just going to be an absolute oddball. Like, if you want to speak to another bloke, it's going to be quite difficult, because most blokes just really care about like pints and football and that sorts of thing. So you kind of do need to have like a base understanding of at least what's going on, so you can at least like have a conversation about it, right? And of course, playing football is good. Playing football, as long as you're using it as a kind of like a means to an end, not the end itself. Like you're using football to get fitter, to have a better social life, to maybe challenge yourself. Great. If you're doing it like just for the sake of the football, you don't really care about those other things, maybe it's not the best thing. Maybe you should be diverting your attention somewhere else. But I don't know, man. It's your decision. It's your life. You can do what you like. But yeah, I would just always warn against excessive over-identifying and obsession, really. Like, someone who's just, all they do about is care about football, speak about football, and all they are is they're not a person, they're a Liverpool fan or a Man United fan, and that's who they are. And that is just a dangerous trap, which I think just sucks the potential and the energy out of you without you even realising. So fundamentally, see football for what it is, not what it is portrayed to be. Now, as a base framework for viewing football, but in a healthy manner, because I don't say you should never watch it again. Obviously, you don't want to watch it. But like I said, I do watch the odd game. But you have to answer these very important questions. Does this consume a great deal of my energy? Does this impact my mood in a meaningful way? Does it replace real ambition or progress in my life? And am I living life through these men on a screen? And if you answer those questions in a diligent manner and an honest manner, you will know whether your football consumption is affecting you in a negative manner. So I think it's very important if you are someone who, say, answers these questions and you're like, oh, maybe I'm going to a bit too much, just don't get emotionally invested in it. You can watch it, you just watch it for entertainment, once a week, whatever. And you can kind of sit back and just kind of like, and, maybe unfollow a bunch of Instagram accounts or X accounts, whatever it is. So it's not constantly on your feed, not constantly on your mind. And just, watch it and say, oh, you know what? If Liverpool loses, if Arsenal lose, if whatever lose today, I don't care. Nothing's going to happen. It doesn't affect anything. And if they win, this is the thing as well, the other side of the coin, you can't get too excited about the wins. Because if you're yes, when they win, it's just like, obviously you're going to feel shit when they lose. So you can kind of tell by your reaction to whether they're winning or losing how emotionally invested you are, and you don't want to be emotionally invested at all. Don't consume football to the detriment of you and your progress in this world. So on a concluding note, there is nothing inherently wrong with watching football, but there is something inherently wrong with having it taking over your life and sapping your potential, energy, and money. And fundamentally, if the highlight of your week is seeing another man slip or stumble in the arena and fail, or the highlight of your week, conversely, is seeing a team win and score a goal in the arena, to be quite blunt, you have work to do, my friend. And the world is falling apart in front of our eyes. That much we can all see. Do not give your life force to something that's only ever going to give you back what you put in. Build something beautiful. Create a community. Do something that's going to have an impact beyond your life for this world, and can be a candle in the dark night that will ameliorate it even in the slightest manner. Because make no mistake, my friend, a spark can start a fire. And although this world seems, overly nihilistic at times, it seems like we're heading towards blackness, and that's the only real path, my friend. Any spark can change that at any time. So I want you to be just like flint and steeling away, creating beauty, trying to create that fire. And my friends, God willing, we will make this world a better place. But yes, gentlemen, just put your energy in towards building something beautiful, not football. Now, as always, gentlemen, we have to go to the SSS, right? Sun, soil, spring. Now, you gentlemen are already familiar with this framework. So I just basically break down all of them, sun, soil, spring, and kind of give you an update on my personal life. So sun, again, last week we're struggling with a bit with discipline. This week, still the odd struggle, but the thing is, I think it's all like data. And the thing is, if I sit down and work, like I was meant to record this podcast last night and I didn't, if I sit down and work and I don't work, there is a reason behind that. And there is something I'm not doing. And so in the instance of last night, I didn't prioritize the work. I was like, you know what, let me go off on an adventure before I genuinely just went on an adventure. Like I was meditating by streams and like running up mountains. The weather was out, to be fair. And then I came home 8. And then after 8, I was just so knackered. I was just like, I couldn't be asked to do it. So there's very obvious inputs and outputs. And so it's all about like gathering data. So next time, if I actually want to get the work done, I have to prioritize. I have to do it first before I go on any Bilbo Baggins-esque adventures. So, again, the discipline is still a bit of an issue, but I'm locking in slowly. I'm becoming more efficient. I'm building better systems. So I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. Now, soil, my gut is actually feeling a little bit better. Like I've just started a new gut health protocol, which is antimicrobial for my SIBO. And actually, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And I think, honestly, like I had a session in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu on Wednesday, and mate, I felt so strong. But the thing is, it was almost like autistic energy. Like I had too much energy. I was being a fucking autist, to be honest. But mate, I was hitting the bag, and oh my goodness, mate, I was just like, it was beautiful, mate. I felt so powerful. So I think honestly, what's in store for that? Like I even had a good night's sleep last night, which is very rare for me. So I think physically, my health is we're about to do some big things, mate. I'm very, very excited for that. We're teetering on the precipice of greatness in that regard. So I'm very excited for that. And that would have been like a fucking 6, 7, 8, 9 year battle with my health. So yeah, well, I'm hoping that pulls through. But yeah, anyway, spring, as like I said, I needed to have a hard conversation with the lady last week. Had the hard conversation. Admittedly, I kind of bottled it in person. And as I was leaving, I called her. She kind of texted me like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Yeah," I called her. So it wasn't like all glorious, like I'm bold as a gladiator. No, I kind of took my time. But we had it anyway. I still could have not had it. I still could have ducked the question. I didn't. So had that hard conversation, and I'm not seeing her anymore. Which is like, yeah. I mean, it's better that way than you say I lead her on and hurt her. So. Yeah, it's it was a hard conversation, but it was necessary, and I think I'm a step closer to kind of cementing in my say sexual morals and code of conduct, which is something I'm really going to refine in this week. I think I kind of know in my heart the truth. I've kind of known in my heart the truth the whole time, but I've not really wanted to admit it. So yeah, it's just about getting that down on paper. So yeah, gentlemen, and then also, I was gonna mention spiritual as well, because I kind of, within this SSS framework, the spiritual is kind of like, it's not one of the pillars, but it's almost the animating body, like the sort of Holy Spirit. So, like this, I don't think it's necessarily something you should like set goals and like systematically attain spiritual advancement. But I do think, like, as I'm quite a spiritual person, right? I'm quite religiously devout and meditate, so on and so forth. So I think it's kind of like, I do dedicate like quite a portion of my life to spiritual advancement. So I think I should kind of put an update in here as well. So it's SSS with and another silent S. So the spiritual, I'm again, like, I'm kind of working with a new meditation technique. Those of you who know like Jack Faces will know, but he has like a kaleidoscope technique, which is something I'm trying to do. And basically the precipice of it, and also the point of it, is to develop the imaginative function, which is what I'm doing. And you basically just try and imagine the most beautiful thing you can do. So I'm trying to get that instilled. Obviously, I'm always praying and always trying to be optimistic, always like trying to see the world in its beauty. And yeah, always working towards creating that. So yeah, spiritual, that's me really. And as always, gentlemen, we like to say a little prayer just to finish. So, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, thank you for all the blessings you bestow upon us, and thank you so much for creating us into the men that we are today. I pray that you help many, many men see through the mirage of meaning, camaraderie, and purpose that is football, and help them see through it and help them overcome it, and give them something better to do, and help them build something beautiful. Help them in their divinely ordained mission, and help them find something that means a lot to them and that is aligned with them, that they can work on to make this world even just a slightly more beautiful place. I pray that men overcome this energy trap and become better men for it. And people, although enjoy football because it is an enjoyable thing, see it for what it is. And I pray it is laid bare and naked in the light for others to see. And I pray that perhaps in diverting attention and energy from this energy leech, that people use that energy for good to create this world to be a better place. But God bless the viewers and the Knights of the Round Table, and help us all on our journeys. Give us strength, give us faith, give us love, give us purity, and help us be the best men we can possibly be. In Lord Jesus Christ's name. Archangel Michael, give us strength in battle, and God bless the Knights of the Round Table. Thank you, Lord. I love you and appreciate you. God bless. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you very much, gentlemen. God bless, and keep trying.